Where do you feel a lot of authors can go wrong writing cozy mysteries then? What are the big pitfalls for the genre?
I think not researching the setting enough. If it's a setting that they're not like really familiar with, that they're not living in, not researching enough so that details will stand out as being wrong when somebody who does know that setting reads it. I think letting a series run too long is a mistake. I always intended that my Sophie Sayers would be a 7-book series. I've been persuaded to write an 8th. I don't think there will be a 9th, but I am diverting onto little short books. Oops, let me just show you. So I've still got Sophie Sayers alive and kicking in these little novelettes, which you can see are much smaller. So I can still write about her without it becoming tedious to me or the reader. Because I think you have to, although you are not your reader, it's important to make sure that if you're bored with something, if you're finding it tedious, then the reader will be as well. I think sometimes people don't add in enough variety in a series. So I'm very careful in each of my, that there'll be a completely different kind of mystery in each story, different setting by definition, because there's seasonal elements. But in the sixth book, Murder Your Darlings, I took Sophie Sayers out of her Cotswold village. It starts and finishes in the Cotswold village, but I sent her off to Greek island in the middle to add variety. So I think not having enough variety, because although there's a certain degree of formula about this kind of story, you don't want things to be too formulaic. So you don't want to just keep writing the same book over and over. And I think that's sometimes where that's a trap that's too easy to fall into, especially if your books are selling well and people are giving you really good feedback. It can be a bit scary to then digress and change to a different genre or to start a new series. I know of a few cozy mystery authors who launch a new series every year to keep themselves fresh and also to give their readers something different and interesting to read. The trouble with launching a series or launching too many series is that you end up with having too many plates spinning. And I think you have to keep a series in business. You have to add at least 1 book a year to a series. But depending on the speed at which you write, that can be quite tricky. I'm a bit overdue with writing the 3rd St Bride's because life has got in the way, but that is my plan, to add 1 per year, if not more. So I think, avoiding repetition. I think I've read a few books, I'm not naming any names and or pointing any fingers, but making the stories too sort of shoehorning details into a story to make the plot work. So, you have to have a retired safe breaker living next door to the detective or something. It's just, it stretches credibility. And I think you have a certain, with all mystery stories and with all murder stories in particular, you have a certain suspension of disbelief, because as the old with Midsummer Murder television series, which of course was originally books, there have been so many murders in the community that it starts to become a little bit unbelievable, but people are willing to they love them so much that they will suspend their disbelief to go with that. But I think you have to be careful that you're not stretching your readers' imagination too far sometimes. I've read quite a lot of village mysteries, and there are some books I've read where they've had so many features in this village that it's really ceased to be a village. If you have a village, you might have a couple of shops. If you've got a high street with 50 shops in, to me, that's not a village. Especially when additional shops are being introduced because they happen to need to have these strange and unusual shops in the village, So that I think you have to be careful that you're not straining realism. One of my pet hates is where people set up, they run out of things for their mysteries, for their sleuth to detect. I'm talking about amateur sleuths here because mine are amateurs. So they set up their own detective agency. And you think, really? This little village is going to provide enough business to sustain a detective agency? I don't think so, somehow. And that's just been done so they can give a new plot twist to the series. So that kind of thing irritates me a bit. But not all books please all readers, and providing they're pleasing lots of readers, well, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, set up your amateur detective agency. And I think like the Mara Motsway ones, that Alexander McCall Smith, he has made it very plausible in his books are a bit of an exception. I have huge admiration for his prolificness and his versatility and his writing quality. I think he's wonderful. He's a definite role model. But when you find yourself doing things like that, I think you should just re-examine what you're doing and be really sure that it's the right thing for your series. And if you're having to strain a series so much to force more into it, then I think that's probably time to start looking at writing a different series, starting something fresh.